Hello there, I am Coach Coop and welcome to a very late review of Aliens Fireteam Elite, a game I actually reviewed the trailer for quite recently because I was pretty damn hyped, and I am still hyped. I'm about 7-8 hours into the game. There's been some really good stuff and some also quite weird stuff. If you'd have come up to me when the film came out, I was 7 I think, and asked me what my favourite Aliens game was, I would have said this because it was epic for me. It ran on my 128K, but this is running on slightly higher specs than that, and I have a uncapped frame rate as well. This is on PC, didn't get it on the PlayStation 5, wanted to see some big resolutions coming in, and it does actually do very well with atmospherics and smoky visuals for a game that's 35 quid. Also wanted to shout out some cool alien YouTubers that I watch. A guy called Alien Theory, bang on with the cool comic stories. He retells them and he goes through loads of lore. The guy's awesome, to be fair, and he's just on a let's play of this. So I wanted to mention there's one Aliens game that I've never played that's on the DS that I'm still hunting for on physical. So let me know if you've played that Infestation game. It's proper good 2D platform shooter. Bit like that Alien 3 game we had on the Mega Drive. Notice I am looking at the aliens in quite a lot of detail, and yes, I will keep the Hudson quotes to a maximum.
We're on express elevator to hell, going down.
This game does do some fan service pretty damn well, to be fair, and it doesn't hold back on showing you some really mad lore. That was what I was really interested in, is how much of that Prometheus stuff is actually in this game, and do we get a lot of those questions answered that we saw in that previous trailer. But let's just look at this gunplay, because it is not shit at all. I'm actually quite addicted to it a little bit. It's very satisfying.
Xenos, watch the sides.
I'll talk about that class system difference in a second, but let's just talk about the reviews so far. Metacritic, well, it's in the top sort of 25%. It's doing really well on Steam. Some of the bigger name reviewers, ACG, SkillUp, didn't rave about it, and there's some reasons for that, but I think for a modern day Aliens game, this is a hell of a lot better than Colonial Marines. Jesus Christ, Randy. Yeah, this one's going to make quite a bit of money, and I can see how they can add more to it and sort of polish it, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to hold back on doing a really early review of this game. It's still on day one. It's not had a day one patch, which I'm quite surprised at, but it's kind of glitchless. But there just are some things that need mending.
Junction's clear.
There is a hotkey system on the shoulder buttons that differ quite dramatically depending on who you choose. One of them's actually got a minigun turret that goes down on the ground, like the sentry gun. And of course there's the demolition guy who's got quite a cool electricity that goes around him. Those differences are important. There is synergies, and of course this game heavily leans forward to making sure you go online. By the way, the QT is, because I'm on an Xbox controller, when it says X, my brain has to do some real thinking, and I always fuck it up. So they're genuinely quite frightening for me.
Bypassing damage.
While I got it on PC, walked around all day yesterday, tried 3 different video game outlets in the city that I live in, and none of them had it physical on the PlayStation 5. Thought, right, went home, went to download it. Yes, of course, problem with the store. Don't think it's anything to do with my usual crap, because when I went on to the massive Game of the 60 quid year edition with all the Fandango Vasquez headbands, it's like, yeah, you can buy that. And I was like, no, I'll just take that 35 quid now. Issue with the site, so fuck.
I am the ultimate badass.
Yes, that'd be fun.
State of the badass art.
But it does mean I get to mess around with my sliders, and mess around with the ratios. It's going in straight high. There isn't an ultra setting by the looks of it, and it is not badly performing. I don't think it's going above 60 frames much, and it certainly does have a little bit of a dip here and there. We'll look at that in a second. Just want to go through some of this bullet sponge thing. Yeah, there is a Left 4 Dead aspect to a lot of the enemies, and they just are beelining for a particular member, and then you just have to stuff them full of most of your specials. Shot that AI there. The AI is just, because I've got these angry Joes that I haven't bothered changing their names, are called Alpha and Beta. It's just mental bad, but it's funny because they are AI companions, and that they would be awful. It's not that different for being online with my mates, to be fair. Actually less frustrating because they don't shout back at me or get moody and log off. You know the deal.
Into the elevator. Haul ass, Marines. Enjoy the ride, Marines.
But is it a good game, Coop? Is it a good game to keep blabbering on about all this crap, but you haven't actually addressed what we're looking at? The verticals that this game is competing in, and it's the third-person ARPG sort of over the right shoulder gunslinging setup. And there's a lot of very strong, Resident Evil 4 being one of the originals of that area. There's so much it's competing with. That's the issue with me. And the fact that it's got a very linear choice of enemy type. With the aliens, it's done quite well. It's expanded on some of it. I haven't or won't show you any of the later game enemy types with the Promethean mix, but we have got something coming up in a minute that kind of changes the dynamic.
What the fuck happened here?
Kind of into the story a little bit, because it's really like marine focused and gun-ho and corporate, and Wayland is really up to some proper weird shit on this planet, and you're going through a lot of their experiments, and you're kind of looking through the disaster fallout of some strange Promethean Yutani collaboration. So back to my point about genre and competitor, there is kind of like a smorgasbord of games that do exactly what this is doing and have been doing for years. Also got a little bit of a curse hanging over it, what with recent events. I say recent, about 5 years ago, wasn't it? But it's still got a lot to live up to, and the fact that the franchise is so demanding, I think, with its fans, especially I can speak from personal experience, Isolation is the only thing that's ever come close to doing those films to any justice. I think we'll all be in agreement of that. But when it comes to like hardcore third-person shooters, the franchise doesn't have, or the IP doesn't have anything. So this is probably desperately needed, and it does scratch something.
What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Doing it on solo, I actually don't mind it. I like the idea of that. The series has always had a sort of solitary aspect to it, but of course it's going to be with your mates that this game really does fire on the cylinders that it's supposed to be. But I can safely say that the one-player campaign is juicy enough for that 35 quid to just muck about with on your own. And get this, they've done a Resident Evil Village to me and put the horde mode after you finish the campaign, which is where the bread and butter for this particular game is going to be. We've got a little bit of frame dip here. This is on the reflections you'll see on the ground. The game kind of bites off a bit more than it can chew, I think, with some of the visuals. They have 100% nailed the ragdoll of the creatures and the ranks of them. The smaller ones, the way they go around corners, if you're shooting at them when they're running, they will stagger and roll, and the dissipation of their heads and the blast of the acid is really bang on. That I'm so satisfied with that bit. It's just the fact that that variety, that wheel of variety is very small, and that's where things start getting a bit weird, because the game actually introduces synths in a bit, and I'm not sure how to take that.
Independently targeting particle beam phases.
Watch for stragglers.
To be fair, to credit them, they didn't do a Colonial Marines and put in army soldiers right at the beginning of your damn game, but they held back at least 5 hours before introducing synths and range combat. And that's why I was like, why is there kind of a cover system when the only thing we're dealing with is a few spitters? You do actually get quite a few soldiers coming up mid-game. With doing that, you are now entering the realm of the cover-based shooter. This realm has got mammoth creatures such as Gears of War 5 and Vanquish striding around in it. So you don't really want to mess with that, and that's why I want it to fall back on its soul, which is basically the horde, a lot of aliens on screen coming at you all at once from the ceiling, floors, everything, and you're having to do a 360 degree because you don't know what's coming and when it's coming. And there's communication there, and there's that horde aspect. With this cover-based shooting stuff and it's stopping and starting because, you know, you do have to get behind something, not sure it kind of blends with the gaming message.
Yo! Stop your grinning and drop your linen.
When it's doing that 360 degree shoot yourself because you don't know what's happening stuff with the aliens, it's really good. And it's got a lot of amazing levels, one of which I haven't shown, which is a little bit like Hadley's Hope, you know, the hive and that industrial look, all that red, it kind of does work. It's a really good horde map as well. So there's a lot of pluses here, enough pluses to warrant £35, let me tell you. But I've avoided it the whole video and I haven't mentioned the game's name, but there is something that this really does directly compete with, and of course, it's the old RMFMA, Remnant from the Ashes, one of my favourite third person over the right hand shoulder shooters of modern time, 3-player online co-op. It's absolutely incredible, and if you've got Fireteam and you're thinking, oh, this style of game really appeals to me, this is very cheap as well. It's probably down to about £20-25. We had it free for ages. It's a stunner, and it should be enjoyed alongside Fireteam. Of course, Remnant's lore allows it to just go ham on the enemies. Fireteam can't compete with that on that front, but I don't want you guys to not know about this game if you're remotely into Fireteam. I've been Couch Coop. See you down there.
Keeping up on current events, but we just got our asses kicked, pal.